Hey guys, welcome back to Dogforge. My name's Paul, and today we'll continue our look at the Spelljammer races. This time we're taking a look at the insectoid folk, the Thri-kreen. So let's jump on into it. So our art here is a good representation showing off one of the Thri-kreen's most defining characteristics, their set of 4 arms. You can clearly see that 2 arms are much larger and powerful than the 2 internal lower arms. And we'll go over that in more depth when we get to the mechanical section. Heading on over into the lore section, Thri-kreen have insectile features and 2 pairs of arms. Their bodies are encased in protective chitin. They can alter the coloration of this carapace to blend in with their natural surroundings. Although Thri-kreen don't sleep, they do require periods of inactivity to revitalize themselves. During these periods, they are fully aware of what's happening around them. Thri-kreen speak by clacking their mandibles and waving their antennae, indicating to other Thri-kreen what they are thinking and feeling. Other creatures find this method of communication too difficult to interpret and impossible to duplicate. To interact with other folk, Thri-kreen rely on a form of telepathy. And I believe that is just one way. They just need telepathy to be understood. You don't need telepathy to understand people. Coming on over to the boilerplate stuff, for your ASIs you get a +2 and +1 of your choice, or 3 +1 and 3 different stats of your choice. For languages, you're going to get common and one language that you and your DM agree is appropriate for your character and campaign. And with no specific callouts, they're going to be as tall, heavy, and live as long as a human. Now into the interesting stuff, you are a monstrosity, which I believe makes this a 50-50 split amongst the Spelljammer races between humanoids and non-humanoids. This does of course make you immune to some effects and spells, however it does open you up to be targeted by others. Size, you are medium or small. You choose the size when you select this race, and you have a walking speed of 30 feet. Into the good stuff, Chameleon carapace. While you aren't wearing armor, your carapace gives you an armor class of 13 plus your dex modifier, so that is pretty on par with the good side of unarmored AC calculations, and it's equivalent to, say, +1 studded leather or mage armor. But in addition, as an action, you can change the color of your carapace to match the color and texture of your surroundings, giving you advantage on stealth checks made to hide in those surroundings, which is kind of crazy. This does not say that you can't move whilst you are hiding in this fashion. This does not say that you can do this a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, similar to the Svirfneblin or the Deep Gnome. You just get to give yourself advantage on stealth checks at will, just needing to spend an action to adjust your coloring. That is kind of crazy powerful and just tucked in underneath their AC, which is also a little unusual that they just folded it in here. I'm not sure if this will survive or get errated to be proficiency bonus at some point, but at the moment that is a very powerful ability, particularly as your AC relies on your dex mod, making this great for dexterity based characters like rogues and monks, or dex based fighters, rangers, that kind of thing. You do get 60 feet of dark vision. Into the uniqueness here with secondary arms, you have 2 slightly smaller secondary arms below your primary pair of arms. The secondary arms can manipulate an object, open or close a door or container, pick up or set down a tiny object, or wield a weapon that has the light property. So let's get the elephant in the room out of the way first. This does not talk about spellcasting. This does not say that you can use the small arms to perform the somatic or interact with the material components of spells. Now, since this does give us a list of things that we can do, it would be fair to say that you cannot use those arms for spellcasting. However, given that there is things like manipulate an object and pick up or set down a tiny object included, that does make it a little bit of a grey area for material components at the very least. So, as always, check with your DM just to make sure that you understand what those little arms can do at your table. In terms of the impact of this in general, it's pretty huge. It means that you can wield weapons in your smaller arms whilst still using your primary arms for things like spellcasting, holding other weapons, magic items, or what immediately jumped to my mind and comes online basically immediately in terms of what you need is two-weapon fighting with your smaller arms whilst wielding a shield on one of your primary arms. This gives you the AC benefit of going sword and board with the damage benefit of going two-weapon fighting, which, despite some naysayers, is one of the most powerful ways to fight as a martial in Tier 1 and remains competitive Tier 2 and onwards. This is kind of crazy. It also opens up very interesting things, like if you want to use a hand crossbow or perhaps a pistol or something, and you don't have a feat to ignore the loading property to reload them multiple times in a turn, it doesn't matter anymore, because you can hold 3 of them and just have one arm left to load each one, giving you up to 3 attacks in that turn. So anything up to an 11th level fighter is entirely fine there. That's kind of crazy in my opinion, and pulling out all of the guns from underneath a trench coat kind of deal would be a pretty cool Matrix-esque vibe in my opinion. So this, I think, is going to be very interesting. I think we're going to see a lot of interesting ways of using these in builds, because it does help you get past a lot of action economy blocks that you typically need a feat, fighting style, or other kind of workaround to circumvent. Moving on, Sleepless. You do not require sleep and can remain conscious during a long rest, though you must still refrain from strenuous activity to gain the benefit of the rest. So, mostly a ribbon ability. Note that whilst this says you do not require sleep, this does not say that you cannot be put to sleep. So, that is something to bear in mind. This wouldn't necessarily protect you from things like the sleep spell, but it does give you a little bit more time whilst everyone else is sleeping to do some minor light activity. Or you could be shoved on watch all night. Yeah, advocate for what your Thri-kreen wants. And finally, we're down to Thri-kreen Telepathy. Without the assistance of magic, you can't speak to non-Thri-kreen languages you know. Instead, you use telepathy to convey your thoughts. You have the magical ability to transmit your thoughts mentally to willing creatures you can see within 120 feet of yourself. A contacted creature doesn't need to share a language with you to understand your thoughts, but it must be able to understand at least one language. Your telepathic link to a creature is broken if you and the creature move more than 120 feet apart, if either of you is incapacitated, or if either of you mentally breaks the contact. No action required. So this is actually pretty good. This doesn't require any action economy to set up. You just talk. It doesn't look like they can reply to you. You can use it to convey your thoughts. Yeah, and it's a range of 120 feet, which is on the upper end for these kinds of abilities. So this is actually one of the stronger kinds of telepathy abilities that you're going to find. Some of them still require languages, some of them require bonus actions. Being able to just talk telepathically with no action economy required, 120 feet out, and you know that your party members are going to have at least a language, this is actually a pretty potent ability that goes beyond a ribbon. Technically, rules as written, this is mandatory for you to be able to communicate with non-Thri-kreen, but this also just is a pretty nifty ability. It would work great for things like moon druids that are going to be shifting out of their natural forms anyway. Actually, it does bear question how much of this you would get to keep when you are a moon druid, but it is nonetheless a very interesting race. Overall, I'm very happy with the Thri-kreen. I would have liked to have seen, they're typically known for being able to jump, kind of like predator jump, and I would have liked to have seen something like that. Maybe something like the Satyr's ability, excuse me, where you get to roll a dice to add that onto your fixed, or maybe incorporate your proficiency bonus, since they seem to be obsessed with that now. The Chameleon carapace is an excellent ability that is, I wouldn't be surprised if it got added, but in the meantime, enjoy it. Secondary arms is kind of build defining and defining in terms of what you can do with it. And the telepathy is just a really nice bonus on top of everything. But that's what I think. What do you think of the Thri-kreen? Do you like them? Are you interested in being able to hide wherever you want with really high accuracy? What are you thinking about those forearms? Do you already have ideas what you can do with those forearms? Let us know in the comment section down below. Whilst you're down there, like this video if you found it helpful and informative. And if you're new to the channel, please make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can be notified of future uploads. And it does really help the channel. We appreciate it. Until next time, my name's Paul and I will see you at the Forge.